Today on Hands-On Photography, I'm going to show you how to add a little bit of mood and atmosphere to your favorite photographs. Stay tuned.
This is TWiT.
Well, hey, what's going on, everybody? I'm Pruitt, and this is Hands-On Photography here on TWiT TV. Hope y'all are doing well. I'm unbelievable as always. I wanted to do something just a little bit different with this week's episode because I get a very common question about some photographs that are sent in for critique or just some feedback. And that question is, okay, so I'm out here doing this landscape work or just, you know, out and about and saw something interesting and I felt like I should shoot it, but I want to make it moody. What can I do? How can I make this shot a little bit more moody and give it a little bit more atmosphere? Well, there are a couple things you can do. Some things it just regards the timing. You have to get up early enough. Like right now, this is pretty early in the morning, and you get out here in nature and you can see nature will provide a lot of mood and atmosphere for you just from beautiful haze and fog and mist and sometimes beautiful sunlight. Or you can go out a little bit later when they say the blue hour and check out how the sun is setting and see that you'll get additional mood and atmosphere at that time. So what if you're not able to do that? Well, you can just fire up Photoshop and check out some of the custom brushes that are available inside of Photoshop and just paint in some additional mood and atmosphere. You know what? Ooh, there's a deer over there. Before we get back to the studio, I'm going to take a quick photograph and we're going to go back to the studio and I'm going to show you how to add some mood to your landscape images or any images and just give it a little bit more feel and atmosphere using simple brushes inside of Photoshop. Hold on, I'll be right back.
Okay, so we are now back at the home studio. Thank y'all for joining me out there in the wonderful world of landscape photography. So now what I'm going to do is just share my screen and show you one of the shots that I snapped out there and just walk you through the process of adding some mood and some atmosphere to it, you know, using the magical easy brushes that are built inside of Photoshop, as well as take a look at another brush that you can use that's custom and you can actually get it for free. So let's go ahead and hop on over into Lightroom right now, just show you what we're working with. So we'll switch my screen here. All right, so this image here, this is straight out of the camera. It's a little underexposed, but that's okay. And I've already done some touch up for it. So let me just fix the touch up for you on the screen. There we go. Boom, it's done. Better white balance, better exposure. The shadows have been increased so you don't have the crushed blacks and things like that. So it looks pretty good, but it could be better. You know, I was out there in this bright, well, not bright, but early morning, and it was quite cool and a little bit nippy. And there was a lot of fog and haze, and I want to play off of that emotion and that feeling while I was out there snapping a shot. I want that to come through in this image here. So I want to put a little bit more haze in this. And there's a tool right here inside of Lightroom that'll let you do it, but it's a little bit more global, and that's the dehaze option that you see right here on the right side of the screen. If you increase dehaze, you're going to remove the haze. But if you take it backwards and decrease the haze, you're going to add haze. I hope that made sense. So let's just do a decrease in here and you'll see that the whole image gets hazy. And if depending on what you want to do, that may work for you, but I don't want to go that far. And also I could use the adjustment brush that's inside of Lightroom. If you go up to the top right or just hit K on your keyboard and you'll get the adjustment brush option. And there's a drop down that says dehaze, and it'll give you the same effect. You just move the slider back, I'll say roughly -29. And I'm going to drop a pin and then just change my brush size and just brush in some haze right along in there. And that looks, it looks okay. It's not the best, but it looks doable. It's okay. All right, so let me just undo all of that, reset that. Let's get back to what we were really working with, and that's this image. And I've already pulled it into Photoshop. So let's go ahead and pop into Photoshop and start playing around with this image. This is the final version of it. And I'm going to walk you through step by step how I set this up with all of the different layers. So let's go ahead and do an actual import into Photoshop. Okay, so now we have this in Photoshop, and it's just one layer. And of course, it's a lot easier to work in Photoshop with additional layers because that makes things non-destructive. And you can really have a lot of fun and not necessarily ruin your shot because you're working on independent layers. So the first thing that comes to my mind is I'd like to just give it a little bit of haze on its own separate layer. So I'm going to add a new layer here in the bottom right corner. All right. And then I will take the brush tool that we talked about previously, and I think I can just brush it in here at the bottom right and the bottom left of the image. But you have to think about the color. You have to think about the density of the haze and atmosphere that you're adding. So what I'm going to do is hold down my Alt key on the keyboard. I believe it's Option on Mac, and it allows you to pick a color out of your scene to apply to your paintbrush. So I think I will deal closer to this color here in the center of the frame. It's somewhat brown, but it's got a little bit of white in it, something like this. And yeah, it looks like it's got a little green too. So that may work. So I'm going to click and let go, and that's going to change the color of the brush. And if we look at the top, my flow is set to 100%. No, I don't really want to do that. So I'm going to set it to roughly 4 or 5%, somewhere in that area, or close to it. 8's fine. And then we'll do the opacity, make sure that is set to 100%. So now let's make this brush nice and big with the soft edge. And then I'm just going to brush around a little bit. Just click here, click there. And it gives it just a little bit of haze. Okay. Not too bad. Let me turn my little picture-in-picture off. There we go. So get a little bit more haze just as we brush around on the scene. And again, I think that looks okay. It could look better. You probably can't tell too much here over the video stream, but I promise you it's there. If I really want to go all out, I could change that color to something even lighter. Let's say like this color here. Right here in the grass, it's a little bit lighter. Yeah, no. There we go. That's a little bit lighter, and just paint that in, and you really get to see it stand out. And it just sort of looks like fog and haze. Okay, but I think we could up the ante on this just a little bit. You know, if you look at this screen, I think it needs a little bit of like a blur to it because it sort of looks generic right now. And if I went into my filter option, went to blur and Gaussian blur, I could give it, you know, a little bit of blur there to make it look a little bit more like smoke. But even with that done, it's still not quite my favorite way to go. So I'm going to add one more layer here. And I'm going to turn off this layer from what we just worked on, so we'll be able to see a comparison and a difference here at the end of this tutorial. Okay, so we're going to work on this layer, and we're going to use a different brush. We're not going to use the standard round soft brush. I have a brush that was installed and downloaded from Miss Lisa Carney. She is an awesome photographer and an awesome photo finisher. You may remember her from Focus on Photography. She's got a bunch of free brushes that she's created for Photoshop, and you can download them from her website. I'll have links in our show notes that will allow you to go and get the brushes for yourself. And there's a brush that she has, and it's a dust brush. So if I go up to my brush menu in the upper left, I click and I see a folder for dust, and there's the dust brush. So I'm just going to click one time and I'm ready to go. Now, unfortunately, the brush is a little too small for my liking, so I'm going to make it bigger by pressing the right bracket key on my keyboard. I'm going to make it real big, actually, so you can see it stand out a little bit more. Now, by doing so, you notice that the opacity and the flow change for this brush because that's how she designed it. So now let's just brush in a little bit more haze and dust, if you will, in the scene using this particular brush, and watch how it works out. So I'm just clicking around and it's so much more natural. Because it's not a static brush, it actually changes with each click and with each brush stroke. It gives you a little bit more dynamics in the shape and the depth and volume of the brush. So if I just keep clicking around, I get a lot more haze and fog, and that looks pretty good. So what I'm gonna do is just go with a different color so you can see it some more. So let's go back, change the color. We'll click with this brighter color here, like that. Brush it in, and now you see it. It's really looking like a nice foggy morning out there on this trail. Very, very nice. All right, so now I think that looks better. Plus, I didn't necessarily have to have a filter to make it look better, like a Gaussian blur filter. I think this is way better to go, but I'm still not quite done yet. I think what I want to do is play around with the sun that's showing up in the scene, and it's pretty, but I think it could be better. And there's a brush tip that we can use that'll just make it stand out. So let's switch back over to Photoshop and take a look-see at that. Okay, so over here, the sun it's a very nice color, but let's just play around with it. I'm going to add one more layer again, as found here in the bottom right corner of Photoshop. So just click that, and I have an additional layer here at the top. And I'm going to change my brush. I don't want the brush to be dust for the sunshine here. I want the brush to be a regular round brush. So I'm going to go back up to my brush menu in the upper left of Photoshop, and I'm going to select the soft round brush. Okay, so I got that. And then we're going to take the color of the sun and sample that and use that to sort of make the sun glow just a little bit more. So what we do is hit the Alt key or Option on our keyboard again and sample that color. We don't want it to be bright white like that. Let's go more so closer to this orange and yellowish blend or golden blend, and then let go. And we have the actual color of the sun. But the trick is I want to make this brush really big, way bigger than what's shown right there with the sunshine there. So make sure we have our flow all the way up to 100% this time, and our opacity all the way up to 100% this time. Not something I typically do, but trust me, it works for this particular tip. And then I'm just going to click one time in the middle of the screen on my separate layer, like so. And there we have this interesting bit of glow right in the middle of our screen. Doesn't look right, I know. I'm going to decrease my brush size just so the cursor isn't terribly huge on the screen. And now I'm going to transform this layer and make this layer just a little bit smaller in size. We're going to scale it down just a little bit. So the trick to do that, there's a keyboard shortcut that says Control T, or you can go to the File menu and select Free Transform. So I'm going to do Control T. And you'll see I have these little brackets and guides showing up on the screen around the edges. And I can just scale it down and resize it and move it around, all that good stuff. So I'm going to scale it down like so. And I'm going to place it over here where the sun is to make the sun look a little bit better. I can make it really big like that, which I don't really like, but I want to make it bigger than what it is, but not terribly big, not too much bigger. So let's go with something like this here. There. So now we have a nice little glow. And then I just hit this check mark at the top of the screen, and that will accept the changes. But there's a problem. If you look here at the edge, it's a hard edge because this layer is just squared off. We don't want that. We want this to blend in. Go back to episode 12 and you'll remember we talked about layer mask. So that's what we're going to do, is add a layer mask to this layer to make it blend in better. Layer mask is down in the bottom right corner. Select our brush tool, and with black, we're going to paint that edge away to make it blend in like so. There we go. Much, much better. The sun is bigger. The sun has a little bit of a softer glow. If you want to adjust the blend mode of that layer, you could do that playing around with soft light or hard light or linear light or lighten. It's a lot of different options that you can play with just on that one layer. I like it just at the normal level. And if anything, I could probably decrease the fill just a little bit. And it still looks pretty natural. Still has a little bit of haze and atmosphere and mood to it. I think that looks pretty good. So what we'll do now is Mr. Victor is going to put the before up on the screen. And now this will be the after on the screen. All right, so that is it, folks. That's just how you do it. You take what you have, all of the different tools that you have available to you, and add a little bit of mood and atmosphere to your images. This doesn't necessarily have to be for a landscape photograph. You can also do this for product photography. Sometimes there may be a particular product that you're wanting to shoot and show off. It may want a little bit of smoke in the scene just to make it pop a little bit. You know, you never know. Like if you're working on a ice chilled beverage shot or something like that, and you want to show that it's refreshing and cool and cold, you'll change the color temperature to make it look cooler, and you add a little bit of haze and fog around it to make it look even more frigid inside of that scene. Just use the tips that you have right here inside of Photoshop. All right, folks, if you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email at hop@twit.tv. Or better yet, just give me a follow over on Twitter and Instagram. On Instagram, I am ant_Pruitt. And on Twitter, I am ant_Pruitt as well. I'd love to hear from you, and I always enjoy responding back to the emails that I get from you all with image critiques and some feedback requests and things of that nature. It's a lot of fun. And also, folks, please do me a favor, head on over to our website and make sure you check out all of the subscription options and share this out to everyone so we can grow the hands-on photography community and audience. Website is twit.tv/hop. Again, that's twit.tv/HOP for hands-on photography. Thank you all so much for the tremendous support, and continue to safely create and dominate. And I'll catch you all next time. Take care.